Welcome to NHA Today, where we explore the path to lasting health and fulfillment through a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. Each week, we bring you real conversations with doctors, health experts, and everyday individuals who've transformed their lives through food, mindset, and community. This is NHA Today, powered by the National Health Association.
Welcome to the NHA Today podcast. It is me, Stacey Heine, your guest host for today's episode. And I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest, Dr. Stephanie Peacock. Steph, welcome.
Thank you, Stacey. I'm so excited to be interviewed today about this and to have you as the interviewer because I know we always have such fun chats together. So this will be fun.
Yes. You and I have known each other for several years now, thanks to the holistic and plant-based community. And I am so excited to spotlight you because you help people in such a unique way. And I think it's a very needed way. And in today's age, we have so many issues and conditions that people are dealing with that are related to lifestyle, but also that are related to things that they might not think about, which I know that you really specialize in, which have a lot to do with our environment too. So I want to cover that today. But before we get into what you're up to now, I want to know kind of the backstory of how you started with holistic living, healthy living, plant-based lifestyle. Where did it all start for you, and what lit you up about this lifestyle?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, so when I was in school getting my degree, I've always been so like enamored by nutrition and just what we can do to like better our health, basically. And I've always been that person, probably similar to you, that's like you hear what the instructors are saying, but it's just like, I'm going to dive deeper into that and like learn a little bit more. And my background is as a competitive swimmer. Like I swam for 16 years on the national team for USA, Team USA. I competed in multiple, national, international meets for them. And, I had an amazing career, but like throughout it, like I was always really intrigued by nutrition too. And anyways, so I always just had this thought in the back of my head, like, what can I do to kind of better myself? And sadly, I never really discovered like the full benefits of plant-based nutrition in my swimming career. But when I was in school, we actually had an amazing professor who was talking about like the benefits of like plants. And she wasn't necessarily saying like we need to fully go vegan, but she was discussing like how important these plant chemicals, these plant foods are for us. And I was like, I'm going to look a little bit deeper into it. And that's when I was really discovering the power of a plant-based diet. And I was like, wow, this can solve so many of today's issues, like all these conditions of like dietary excess where we're seeing cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes and obesity like can be solved like through proper nutrition. And I'm like, how are we not even talking more about this? Of course, my mind's like, what else can we do? So of course I went down a huge rabbit hole learning all about plant-based nutrition, and it led me to working at True North Health Center after I graduated from school. So instead of going to work in a chiropractic office, I was like, I'm going to learn about water fasting and plant-based nutrition more. So I went to work there for a year, got tons of experience, which led me to learning more about detoxification in general. But actually, while I was there, I was living in a moldy house, and that made me very sick. So I had been probably vegan or plant-based for about like 2.5 years at that point. And I got very sick, and I was so confused because I didn't understand how I was still, not fully aware of how our environment can fully affect us from like a toxin perspective. I was just more thinking of like the nutrition. If we have all these beautiful foods, that's probably enough for us. We're good. But there's so much more to our health holistically besides just the nutrition piece, but that is a huge part of it. And I really believe the reason why I work with so many clients that are dealing with like mold illness, environmental toxin illness. I didn't get as sick as most of the people that I work with. And I truly believe it was because I was incorporating such a rich diet full of bioflavonoid rich foods. But I still was questioning there's these other things that we still need to pay attention to: our stress, our environment, the products we're using, like what's our air quality like? Are we filtering our water? Like these different things I started to learn more about. And I was like, these play such an important part too. So long story short, took a deep dive into that as well, learned all about how we need to support our bodies from avoiding these different environmental chemicals, focus on what's in our environment, like our home. Is our home okay? Are our products that we're using okay? All these things we need to do to, avoid these chemicals. And of course, incorporating stress management and plant-based diet, among other things as well. But those are the big things that I've just seen that make a real big impact in today's lives for many, many people. And that's what just led me to focusing on the niche that I do, which is helping people that are struggling from environmental toxicity, particularly mold-related illness.
Mhm. Wow. And they say a lot of the times that we can help people the most through the struggles that we've been through.
Yeah.
Not only because we can relate, but because we've walked through it, and we also understand the pain that people and clients that we can help have gone through. So I think that that's a beautiful thing. Even though unfortunately you had to go through that, you are now helping so many people. And I have watched your progress of learning over the last several years um, about detoxification and how we can even better support our body. We all know about, if we're listening to the MHA Today podcast, we know about Dr. Goldhammer, we know about True North, we know about water fasting and the benefits there. But let's talk a little bit more about the bioflavonoids that you were talking about and the polyphenols of a plant-based diet and how that supports detoxification even from environmental toxins and mold, like you're saying that
Oh
you
my
help
gosh.
so many people with.
Totally. It's such a good question. And I will say, before I even start diving into it, is that I have found that a lot of people that come to me that were maybe on like prior detoxification protocols from like other
Mhm.
really wonderful practitioners that may have been missing a really key piece, and that is incorporating bioflavonoid rich foods and fiber. That is so important in detoxing. And if we don't have that implemented, we're not helping our bodies to detox well at all. We could add in all the supplements, all the binders, all these things, but we're not really hitting the mark if we're not incorporating these foods and for these reasons. So first and foremost, fiber. We know that to be able to detox efficiently, we need to be able to bind these different chemicals and toxins and things that we absorb into our bodies from either breathing it in, um, like into our systemic circulation, either through ingesting, right, or through absorbing through the skin. So all of it can get into our circulation, go through the gut. What basically happens is the liver, one of our biggest detoxing organs, actually helps to package these different toxins up, goes through the gallbladder, which emits bile, which is this substance that goes through the small intestine to help create, like, hold on to the little package to get out through the gut. If we don't have good gut motility, which means we're more constipated, maybe we're not going to the bathroom every day, that is a sign that our body is struggling with a toxin load because we're basically reabsorbing those toxins that the liver had packaged up through the bile. But the way that we can help to start to move things through is fiber. That is so, so key. So incorporating different plant foods, basically, that is where we find fiber is in plant foods. And the more diversity that we can get, the better. Because we know through the American Gut Project that if the more diverse foods that we eat, the more it's repopulating our gut microbiome, which is then helping to produce better gut motility, but also better gut bacteria to outcompete the bad bacteria that creates inflammation. So that's a key part in that piece. The second piece, and this is what I find so fascinating, in the last couple of years, new research is showing that to be able to what we call displace these toxins from the body, because what these toxins do, they like to make a home in our body. They want to stay there and survive. That's their whole goal, like mold or any other chemicals. So they just want to like hang out in our liver, our kidneys, our gut. That's what they want to do. And they don't want to leave the body because that's their home now. To be able to displace them, bioflavonoid rich foods, which are basically like in the polyphenol rich foods, like these colorful components in foods, those have such big healing properties, and they actually they actually will detach those toxins from the walls of the kidneys, the liver, the gut, anywhere that the cells, anywhere that they've just decided to hang out, it actually gets in there and interferes with them. And so then it will allow them to go through the liver, through the bile, through the gut, and then get sent out into the body. So that's why I'm telling people and especially when it comes to, like, for example, I work with a lot of mold. So a lot of mold illness patients. So there's different kinds of molds, and each kinds of mold actually have different, like what I call color bands from the rainbow, from the foods in the rainbow that help to actually detox those out of the body. And so, for example, like one of the mycotoxins that's found in mold and water damaged buildings is called citrinin, and that actually responds so well to the red color band of food. So I'm like, eat tons of radishes. Like that is like a great way to detox. It's like amazing. And so that's one of the biggest things is fiber. And then it's incorporating bioflavonoid rich foods. That those two things, like, and that's all found on a plant-based diet. It's beautiful. And it's like, it always, to me, what I've been finding throughout this whole process of working with people in detoxing is that it always comes back to the food. It comes back to what you're eating every day and what you're putting in your body, because that has such profound effects on our health, and you can detox so efficiently by just doing that. And you don't need to be on all the most expensive and best supplements and binders out there. You can do it through food. So
Yeah. So you're telling me those thousands of dollars of detox that some of my clients say they've bought really aren't worth it until we take the precautionary measures of cleaning up the diet first, right?
yep.
Um,
Definitely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's like the foundation. Like it's just the foundation to healing is like food. And I always say the other one is like filtering your water, because we get exposed to so much through water, toxins. But
absolutely.
uh, yeah, either through distilling or reverse osmosis with remineralizing. But like if we can like reduce our exposure to like what we're getting exposed to in the environment, but then add in these things that are so healing and have all these different colors and bioflavonoids that literally have the properties to detach these toxins from the body and
Yeah.
flush it out. You can do that for like $100 a week versus like spending thousands of dollars on supplements. It's
Yeah.
yeah. So
We have to find those lifestyle habits because that's what actually helps us
yeah.
prevent and reverse these diseases. I think it's really, really important to also just mention, I think nature is so cool. Some of the sprouts, right? Like I believe it's broccoli sprouts can even pull benzene from the lungs. I mean, like that just shows the power of plant polyphenols. And I want to mention something that you said, like diversifying our diet, diversifying our plant-based diet, something that I talk to clients about, and they are very surprised to know that like this doesn't mean we have to actually go and eat like tropical fruit that we have to buy from fancy places or specialized crazy Chinese herbs and stuff like that. It can be as simple as like switching from all black beans in your diet to having garbanzo beans and red kidney beans and adzuki beans, right? And different foods within the same category, like different types of apples. They all have different polyphenols, right? That feed our gut bacteria and help us have a stronger immune system so we can then fight all of these things that are trying to bombard our body, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of going off of the beans and supports like that, like different types of like certain types of fiber, like certain types of like insoluble fiber and even some soluble fiber just is so incredible at helping us to, again, support that detoxification capacity. And something that I tell people a lot of is like, before I even start detoxing anybody, before when we are starting to lay the foundation of like adding in these foods and fiber and all those things that you're talking about, I say eat at least 2 tablespoons of like either ground flax or chia seeds a day. That literally packages up and binds onto what I was referring to before, the bile through the small intestine,
Mhm.
and is probably like nature's best binder. I'm not even kidding. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then I tell people as well, try to start to incorporate beans. That's another incredible binding support too. And then the beautiful part about these different seeds and these beans and things is like you're mentioning, we can diversify them too. So you don't need to just stick with black beans or chia seeds. You could do flax, pumpkin, or sesame seeds, or you can do adzuki beans, white beans, garbanzo beans, like whatever you want to do. And you can get that diversity in that way, which again, to your point too, is supporting the immune system. Like 80% of our immune system is located within our gut. And we can do so much by like with the food that we're eating that's going directly to our gut microbiome. And that's going to help support the immune system, which then fights all these different toxins and fights inflammation in general.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
so fascinating how it all works together and how
I know.
these plant foods from the earth can help us so significantly and how we don't have to be looking at all of the fancy fixes and capsules and pills, although they have their place. Really just nailing down the lifestyle and understanding how potent just regular plant polyphenols can be from everyday foods is incredibly awesome. So I want to talk a little bit more about detoxification because this is your wheelhouse. And like you mentioned, the liver is a really key player. What are some of the foods that people can start to implement today that's going to help amplify their strength, the strength of their liver detoxification pathways? And then also adding on to that stuff, can you explain in layman's terms the different phases of detoxification?
Totally. And I always think one thing is that something you mentioned earlier, and I was like, I need to comment on that, was your comment about broccoli sprouts. So that is an insane liver support. They actually now put broccoli sprouts like literally into capsules of detoxing support supplements because of the power of them. And like
Yes.
it's fighting inflammation, but like you mentioned with the benzene, but also there's been studies showing that it can actually help supporting in detoxing out like microplastics too, which we
Wow.
know
Yeah.
microplastics we're getting exposed to like crazy. So,
Yeah.
it's almost unavoidable. We can do our good part in the majority of what's in our home, but yeah, it's just so that's broccoli sprouts are really one of the most powerful foods for the liver and for detoxing in general. And you don't need to get a supplement of it. You can just eat it and grow your
Mhm.
own. So
Mhm.
broccoli sprouts for sure.
Yeah.
So my other favorite liver supporting foods, and then I'll talk about the pathways, is so I love beets. Beets are amazing. I love like what I like to call cholagogues. So it's anything that's helping to support like the liver being able to produce bile, but also stimulate bile flow a lot easier. So that's gonna be like your bitter greens. So that's like I would say like dandelion greens, endive,
Mm.
radishes are a good one as well. Ginger, different things like that are incredible for supporting as well. And then I say usually magnesium rich foods, vitamin C rich foods as well. So like your vitamin C rich foods, there's kiwis, there's your citrusy fruits, and then magnesium rich foods as well. And that, which is like dark chocolate is a really great one as well. And then different seeds like pumpkin seeds is awesome for that too. And then also selenium rich foods. So that's going to be like your Brazil nuts. That's amazing. So like one or two a day. If you're not on a multivitamin, do that. Amazing. And then B vitamins. So anything that's rich in B vitamins. So I usually say leafy greens or grains for that one. So we can do like so much just from like a food perspective. And again, as we know, as you and I know, that when we're taking supplements, that has a completely different effect on the body than when we're incorporating it in like its original setting, which is through foods. And so I'm a big fan of like supplements when we need to use them, but the reason why like these foods are so healing is not just from the fiber or the bioflavonoids, but it's because the properties of like whatever is in that food, like let's talk about vitamin C, for example, and like an orange or something like that combined with the fiber and combined with the other nutrients in it is what creates that beautiful compounding effect of how it's giving us that maximal absorption of what we need from it versus taking like an extract of vitamin C from like a supplement. And although again, there's times and place for all these things, but utilizing foods gives you so much more of that bioavailability and diversity of nutrients that you want.
Yes.
So that's the big thing with the foods. Those are my favorite foods. And then in terms of the detoxification pathway for the liver, so we have phase one, phase two, phase three. So basically, phase one is when the toxin comes in. There's a difference between what we call fat and water soluble toxin. Basically, I'm just going to say this, the majority of them are what we call fat soluble. So they basically like to dissolve in our fats and in our adipose tissue, which is why they can store in our body for a long period of time and also lead to what we call resistant weight loss. Because if we're struggling to lose weight, a lot of times it's because we're kind of overrun with these different chemicals we've been exposed to. They're hanging out in our fat tissue. Our body knows that if we lose weight too fast or too quickly, that's going to flood our body with these toxins. It'll release them. And that's a big reason why. So being able to support the liver, huge, and being able to help you lose weight, just as a side note. But so the first phase is taking that toxin that dissolves in fat, and it basically is breaking it down to bring it to phase two. It's utilizing those different cofactors and nutrients that I was mentioning that are really good for the liver from those foods to be able to package it to move to the second phase. As it's moving to that second phase, because it's basically breaking down this intense toxin, it does make the toxin actually more inflammatory and more toxic. And that's why those nutrients are so, so important. So it moves to phase two. Phase two is where it basically does bind again with more cofactors to help basically package it up. That's what it's doing. It's packaging it up. And then when it goes to phase three is basically how it does it exit the body. So it exits either through our stool, through our urine, or through our sweat. the majority, I'd say like 85% of them, of these toxins will go through the stool, which is why that gut motility is important, AKA fiber, plant foods. And then the other like 10 to 15% is going to be a mix of like through our urine and through our sweat. And so that's what happens. That's how it gets through the system. And that's why supporting, the liver with those foods, eating more fiber and colorful, rich foods really supports us at that like base level of just detoxing daily to be able to support our body and getting these toxins out.
Yeah, I think it's so important that we just mention how it like detox is such a trendy word.
I know.
And most people fall for all of the protocols out there. And it, so much of the support is just in our cabinet and in our refrigerator or at our local farmers market. Uh, we don't have to necessarily, uh, we've already said this again, but like I just want to hammer this into people. We don't have to necessarily be buying all of these supplements all the time if we can really, really hammer in those daily habits of awesome plant-based eating. I think it's just fascinating. So I want to know more about other supplements that you do recommend for people that are going through, and I know there's probably a lot. So, because different things have different purposes, right? And if somebody is going through like environmental toxin load versus mold, like I'm sure there's different protocols. But like is psyllium husk, that's just kind of a random question, but like, do you recommend people take psyllium husk ever as like a nice binder to go along with their
Yes.
chia seeds and stuff like that?
Oh my God. Yes. I love psyllium husk. That is an incredible support. And that's an amazing binder. Yeah. So I always say that my favorite like food-based binders are going to be like, honestly, psyllium husk and like flax and chia seeds. Like I literally love that so much. Those are the best. And then in terms of other binder supports, so basically what I'm doing when I'm looking at somebody and like I want to like start to help support them to be able to detox, it's like I'm thinking, okay, like are they sweating and how's their gut motility? Like how that's those are like the two biggest things I'm really thinking of. Because we got to get the pathways moving the way that we're actually excreting and getting rid of the toxins. Like we want to like look at that part first because if those are gummed up, like we can't be like promoting detox too quickly because like where are they going to go? They're not going to go anywhere. They're just going to reabsorb in the body, potentially have detox reactions. People feel worse. So we really got to focus in on how are we going to get their gut motility moving? That's kind of my biggest one. And so, yeah, it's like either like the foundational approach of like foods and supports like that. If that's not touching it, sometimes we need to go into like other supports like magnesium to help create more hydration water into the colon to be able to soften up the stool and allow things to move
Which
out.
magnesium?
I love so it depends on the how sensitive the person is. And some of my clients that are really sensitive to supplementation, I actually like magnesium oxide because it's not really absorbed in the body, so it acts more like a laxative, but it's not a laxative. Um, and so that's what I like for that. And then I also love magnesium glycinate too for that as well. Those are my kind of like my two go-tos. And then magnesium citrate's also great as well. So those are kind of my three magnesiums that I like. And then you can also do like high dose vitamin C for a little while. So that's really incredible. Like just the extract supplement, like maybe up to like 6,000 IUs of that a day to help support in getting the bowels moving. That's a really great one. Now, if some of the supports like those that are helping to kind of create more hydration and softening the stool are not really working, then I start to think, okay, maybe I need to not be focusing so much at the lower end of the digestive tract, which is where those supplements are working, but kind of look at the upper end, like what's going on in the liver and the gallbladder, because these toxins really affect and gum up those pathways and can cause like it to not be functioning optimally there, which will then not allow the motility to work properly because the liver producing bile and then the gallbladder excreting the bile actually starts gut motility, but actually starts the process of things moving. We know mold toxins and other toxins really, really clog that pathway up. And so I'll start to give some gallbladder support. So again, too, if the foods are not working, like the bitter greens, which is what stimulates the gallbladder to release bile, I'll use a bitter formulation, which is amazing. It's just basically extracts of these different foods. And you can literally Google it. It's just like a bitter formulation. There's different companies that make great ones. You can do that. You basically will usually do like a pump or two of the extract under your tongue, like 5 or 10 minutes before meals. I love other supplements for this, like taurine is a great supplement. let's see, dandelion root is amazing. Tudka is another really good one if somebody's not super sensitive. So just anything we can do to kind of get the bile like flowing. That's a big one as well. And that usually does the trick. If the magnesiums or the vitamin C's or some of those other supports there are not really working, I'll usually look to that piece. And then I'll also do like some like liver support. And I actually do love using like high dose broccoli sprout extract for the liver. Milk thistle, incredibly studied support for like liver. I love that, among other ones. So those are some of my like favorite ones that I can mention here that are like really safe and like somebody can like kind of look into it and probably try it for themselves. So that's usually what I'm thinking is in terms of supplementation for at least getting more regularity going. Once we have that going, that's when I'll start to support somebody with like omega 3s because that helps to support us at the cellular level. So my next phase is, so my first phase is always, let's get the motility going. The second phase is, how can we support the cells? The cells, all of the cells in our body have been impacted by stress, chemicals, toxins. They're inundated with all of it. The cells help produce energy for our body. So if our cells are struggling, they're going to focus on more keeping us alive, not really detoxing. That's where their energy efficiency is going to go, right? So we got to focus in on how do we support these guys. So I love omegas for that. I love phospholipid support for that. I actually love high dose like flaxseed oil for that too. So those are some of my favorite supports. CoQ10 is another really great one. Certain mycotoxins like impair our body's ability to create CoQ10. So sometimes that's a really great one to support with. So those are kind of my 4 go-tos really when it comes to supporting the cells to produce energy to help us detox. Then we're at the phase where it's like, okay, they're doing pretty well. Things are moving, cellular support, they have more energy. Let's go in and start to support with detoxing. Again, that's where let's add a little bit more fiber potentially. Some binders to help detox out these mycotoxins or pesticides or whatever it is. So for example, pesticides, if I see high glyphosate on a, or herbicides, if I see like high glyphosate on a panel, modified citrus pectin is incredible. Pectin is from like, different, different like things like apples and onions and things like that. So pectin's wonderful. And I'll use that. That's great. Safe long-term, which is what I love about it. I'll use like, there's a supplement called Mycobind that's really wonderful for pretty much every mold toxin. It's called Mycobind, and it's basically just like a dried up beet and okra powder. It's great. Yeah. It's incredible. So that's amazing. Safe long-term. I'll use that. And then other ones that I'll use maybe short term, depending on how intense their panels are looking. Maybe I'll use a little bit of charcoal, activated charcoal, a little bit of like zeolite just to help for like a month or two. But another one that I also love too is like humic and fulvic acid. That's great. Usually very safe long term as well. So those are kind of like my go-tos. And you're usually not on all of them. You're just kind of like on 1 or 2 just to help the process. But again, just by getting the more drainage pathways open by supporting the liver, gallbladder, and gut motility and the cells, the body can do so much on its own. It just needs a little bit of assistance usually from these binders I mentioned. But really, that's really it. And I think a lot of people like on social media have really overcomplicated detoxing. They're like, you need to do this 6-step phase protocols to really get after these toxins. And it's like, not really. We can do so much by supporting the gut and supporting these pathways on their own, and then just doing a little bit of binding. So,
yeah. So outside of diet and some herbs that could also help, what about sleep, movement, and you also mentioned sweat, like sleep, movement, and just other lifestyle factors?
Yeah. Great. So sleep, we know that is obviously very important. Everyone knows that. And the reason why is because literally our bodies are detoxing the most and repairing like when we're sleeping. And so what we can do to support sleep is so important. So trying to aim for like 7 to 8 hours a night, really important. Some people, really do struggle with that. So it's really trying to find like what works best for you for like sleep hygiene. What is it? Do you feel like maybe you're just too stressed at nighttime because you're watching TV or not reading a book or something like that? Like maybe using blue light blocker glasses. maybe taking like a form of magnesium, like magnesium threonate or something, just to help calm your system down a little bit. Some adaptogenic herbs are incredible for calming down the body. Like that's usually from like mushroom extracts, amazing. You can use little supplemental supports there just to kind of get you into a better routine and more calm at nighttime. Maybe a magnesium soak bath, meditation and nervous system regulation. I didn't even mention that, but that's like one of my also part of like my beginning phase of like before we detox, we got to get your nervous system regulated. So vagus nerve work, how whatever that looks like for you, do that. Nature time. So I would tie that in with the sleep because that's helping our parasympathetic state. So sleep, nervous system work, exercise and movement, really important. Not everyone can tolerate the same types of exercise depending on how fatigued they are from their toxin load or just life in general. So whatever movement looks like to you, if that's a 30-minute walk a day, that's amazing. Like you can split that up throughout the day. If you like to do a little cardio, great, swimming, running, whatever works for you, yoga, tai chi, strength training, Pilates, all that stuff is wonderful. It's whatever you prefer. And I love if people can try to do like 20 to 30 minutes, like 4 to 5 times a week or something as a baseline. That's important. And then, so we talked about sleep, movement, and I can't remember the third
Sweating.
one.
I mean, you mentioned
Sweating.
sweating. Like, how important is it? I know that
Yes.
I've talked to you, I've like messaged you from my sauna. Like, you and I have chatted a lot about like healing. You and I are very into this, and I've gone through my own liver stuff with viral overload, and I had histamine problems, and we worked through that kind of together. And
Yeah.
the vagal nerve support, you and I both are so into just getting our sympathetic state like
Yeah.
to be the dominant state that we're in instead of being in fight or flight all the time. Now, sweating, that's something that I always struggled with. And I finally started sweating. I'm 40 years old now. Like, so in my 39th year, I finally started sweating. I mean, I had to work at it. I had to sit in the sauna. I had to dry brush. I had to take magnesium baths. I mean, all the things. I had to do a lot of work. And clearly my body was gunked up for 39 years. So how important is sweat?
So important. And that's really crazy. I'm also glad that you're sweating now. That's amazing. So yes, yes, so important. So again, that's like one of our three pathways that like toxins leave. And what I did mention earlier is like certain toxins, like which is, all different kinds we get exposed to, those they preferentially leave the body through different mechanisms. So either sweating, urinating, or pooping. And so a lot of them love to leave through sweat, actually. So yeah, it is so important to make sure that we're trying to get, if you don't feel like you can sweat, work at it, just like you said that you were doing,
Yeah.
because the body, we can open that pathway up just by trying to promote more of that and supporting kind of like other detoxing, like making sure your gut motility is good, your liver is good, all that stuff. That helps again promote the detox process and allow the body to then be able to open up that pathway. But I love sweating. So whether it's through sitting in a hot bath, amazing, whether it's through exercise or whether it's through like a sauna or infrared sauna, those are my favorite ways to be able to promote sweating. And, because a lot of people I work with, like in the beginning, they're so fatigued from like their toxic burden, like they can't even imagine trying to exercise to produce sweat at all. Like, and I'm like, that's not what we're doing. We can either do a hot bath or we can just sit in an infrared sauna. And the beauty of like both of the magnesium soaking hot baths and infrared sauna is like there's studies with each of them. Like, well, magnesium, we know, promotes a parasympathetic state. So it helps your nervous system. It calms people down. I have a lot of clients that do it before bed to help them just get into a restful state to sleep better. And then same thing with infrared sauna. Like there's studies that show that how it supports our nervous system regulation and it calms us down. I immediately noticed within 10 minutes of being in my infrared sauna that I feel so much calmer. Like it is incredible. And so that's kind of the benefits of it too, besides the exercise piece, that you're getting like kind of a 2-for-1 when you're doing that. And so, yeah, promoting the sleep, the sweat, and then the movement really, really ties into helping your body's ability to detox. And the one last thing I'll say too is with the movement and the sweating, like you mentioned, lymphatic support, that's helping promote your lymphatic drainage. Your lymphatic drainage is basically this like our body's garbage disposal mechanism where it's basically taking any toxins that have been at that cellular layer and like helping to get it through the body and then to the liver to be able to package it up and out of the system. And there's few ways that we can support that. Sweating and infrared sauna and movement are great. And then dry brushing, like you mentioned, rebounding on like a little trampoline thing. Not, reducing like tight clothing that you're wearing, things like that, like can really support that pathway too. But yeah, all good.
So as we start to wrap up, I would love to know some of the things that we can do to start to reduce our environmental toxins that we're exposed to on a daily basis. You've kind of touched on it, but we just kind of like a list of things that we can start to make simple swaps for. And then also like how a lot of people are dealing with lifestyle related issues. We know blood pressure, blood sugar, again, high body weight, etc. Those are that's there. But it's also notable, I think, to bring up how there are kind of these stealth things that are going on that we wouldn't have thought of, right? Like these environmental toxins, these things that we're being exposed to. And like myself, I personally went through it, like viral overload. I didn't know. And I worked with James and Dahlia Marin from Married to Health. They're plant-based integrative gut health dietitians. And they helped me uncover that was my problem with my liver. And I would have just kept throwing these basic lifestyle things at it versus understanding how important it is to get these viruses kind of out of my body, right? Like I think that a lot of people, even in the lifestyle medicine world, we're not thinking about these extra things that are coming at us and that we're exposed to. So if you can kind of touch on that and like how maybe you're surprised at how many people are dealing with mold and environmental toxins, and then also what can we do to do our best to avoid these? I know that was a very loaded question.
Oh, that was great. Amazing. No, yeah. So, okay. So the first question was about like just some simple things that people can do to, change things out. And it's kind of going to be like what I think you and I are just used to hearing all the time. It's really like these are the big ones, honestly, because I always think of what's going in, on, and around our body. There is a wonderful, I can't remember her name right now, but that's what her like tagline is on Instagram. And I literally love it so much because I'm like, yes, like what is in, on, and around our body? The most. And so let's talk about what's going in the body. So in the body, food and water, right? Those are like the two big things that we're really putting into our system all the time. And so filtering our water, huge. There's like so many contaminants in our water supply. We want to make sure that we're filtering the water, even if you think that your fridge filter is like doing enough, it's not. It's getting rid of maybe like 8 or 10 things out of a list of like 300 or something on like the list of like potential contaminants in our water. So making sure we're doing that, either through reverse osmosis with remineralization or like distillation is great as well. So that's important. So that's in. The other one for that too is food. We've been talking about food this entire time, but the one thing we didn't touch on was like organic food. And so making sure that we're focusing on organic to reduce our exposure to these pesticides and herbicides that we know literally act as like antibiotics to our gut and then wipe out our gut bacteria. And among other things too, they can create that leaky gut and just create a lot of issues. So even if you're eating like, tons of broccoli, if it's like, conventional broccoli and not organic, like that's a big exposure you're getting to things. So try to eat just as organic as you can. That's a big one. So that's what I think of when it's going in. So let's talk about on the body. So on the body, that's like the products that we're using. So that's going to be like, our personal care products. So for that one, that's kind of a big one. We could probably do a whole podcast episode on just that, but I'll just mention whatever you're using right now, you can triple check it with or double check it with a couple different apps. Like there's one that I really love that Lara Adler, who's an amazing environmental toxin expert, had mentioned that's just incredible to use. That is her favorite. It's called Clear. Yeah. So that's a great app to be able to cross-check things. EWG is another pretty good one as well. I usually refer people to the Clearia app, but just double check. You can kind of type in the ingredients and you can also type in the product name and usually they have reviewed it and they'll let you know if like it's pretty safe. So that's another one. So thinking personal care. And then the other one is what's going on around the body. So again, that's going to be kind of like our air. The EPA, the Environmental Protective Agency, has literally estimated that our indoor air is 2 to 5 times more toxic than outdoor air. And most of us are sitting indoors all day, with our windows not open. So I usually say, well, first, if you're suspecting mold in your house, like definitely get a mold inspector out, like make sure that there's no water damage and something that is creating an issue as well. But again, focusing on air filtration. If your outdoor air is clean, open the windows, get some fresh air in, utilize an air purifier. I personally love the Air Doctor. Great, but there's other air purifiers too, that have like an ultra HEPA filtration. That's great. That's what you want. And that helps to clean the air. And then in terms of other things that contaminate the air, not just mold, but cleaning products, that's a big one. And like a lot of us are using, conventional cleaning products. So switching to more natural approaches uh, like vinegar and water or things like that. Or even like, I love this company called Branch Basics. That's like, it's literally like they give you a solution, you just mix it with some water and it literally works for every part of the home. There's tons of great options. You look into it, but those are my biggest ones. So I'd say those are like the switches. If I was to start anywhere, it would be what's going in the body. That's where I would start because that's so important. And then in terms of the things that we don't think about, yeah. And so that's the thing. It's like, pretty much everyone I work with, they're like, I was doing everything right. I was doing, everything. I was eating clean. I'm exercising. Usually the nervous system part wasn't in there, but it's okay. Obviously, we're not all perfect. But people, they're like doing so many things. And like yourself, Stacey, like you were doing everything right. Like you've been plant-based for a very long time, movement, like this, that you have a holistic, like, mindset and, what you're using product wise, but yet you had what happened to you. And same thing with me. I had this same thing as well. I was moving, I was exercising, doing, eating well. And we just can't sometimes overlook like how powerful the environment is. And our body's detox capacities can only handle so much, honestly. And so we can be doing all the right things, but if we're getting exposed, if we have like a huge viral load, that can really upset our system. If we are getting exposed to mold, that's a huge missing piece. Honestly, it's estimated that like 50 to 60% of homes in America have some form of water damage. It's just on the rise right now. And so a lot of people, that's what people are getting exposed to, unfortunately. And it's what I'm just seeing a lot in my practice. So making sure that your home is, good to go. And again, we can do testing for these different things. So there's a panel through a company called Vibrant Wellness that is called a total tox burden test. It tests for those heavy metals, it tests for the environmental toxins that we've been talking about, and it tests for mold toxins. So I love running that one because it's just giving me everything. I can see what's going on in the body. There's different mycotoxin labs. There's different looking at mold in the body as well. And then just looking into like conventional like lab work, to be able to see like what our liver enzymes look like, how's our kidneys functioning, like things like that. And then that can kind of lead you down the road of like, okay, we can run like a viral load panel. Let's see what you've been exposed to, what's like still stored in the body and active to help support the body and getting that out of the system as well. So I would say that I see more often than not most people's illnesses nowadays or chronic diseases are honestly a result of, obviously aside from like food choices and things like that, but really as a result of like these chemicals and toxins we're getting exposed to, just because we know that the US is just, there's just been so much more production of these, and then unfortunately of these chemicals in our products, foods, etc. But then also the homes, sadly, just hold in a lot of these different toxins that can be growing in the home. And so just being aware of that is like so much power. And then, working with somebody who can like either James and Dolly or like myself, or there's other wonderful practitioners that do that deep dive into like, let's run a panel, let's see what's going on in your body.
Yeah.
Because that's the beauty of these functional lab tests. There's a bunch of them there's a bunch that are the options to use, but utilizing like one or two can give a good picture.
Wow. So good. So good. Well, we have so much to think about here and so many actions that we can take. I just want to wrap up. How can we find you and stay connected to you, Steph?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So if you want to work with me, you can do a discovery call on my website at stephaniepeacock.com. If you want to find me for all the info I post about all this stuff, my TikTok and Instagram handles are really active. It's Dr. Steph Peacock, Dr. Steph Peacock. On my website too, you can subscribe to my newsletter. And then I also have a podcast called the Holistic Hub Podcast, where I post every other week, and I just bring experts in the field of chronic illness talking about everything related to like what you can do and help support.
So good. Well, thank you so much for sharing space with me today, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Sounds great. Thank you, Stacey.